couple of questions so that we can know even a little bit more about you, because we are all, as a church, I believe, we're also just so grateful for the amazing job that you're doing leading our worship band, and you guys, all the worship band, leading us to just worship our Savior. And so I have actually a few questions about what that is like and what has even brought you to this point where you're just leading us in this. So my first question for you is, what are some expectations that you have set for our worship band?
Well, I think the greatest two commandments that, Jesus gave to us was to love God and to love people, and that's one thing that we've been talking about as a band over the last few months is how can we love God, how can we love people through our worship here on stage and, in our everyday lives. And then, our focus to always be on God, to pursue God with everything, and to pursue excellence is a big one that we talk about a lot. Just, trying to do the best we can because God deserves it.
So you talked about excellence. Why do you guys, as a worship director and as the band, what do you guys desire that kind of excellence? I mean, obviously you said God, but why do you think it's important to create here on Sunday mornings just an atmosphere of excellence during worship?
I think, during a Sunday worship, there are a lot of distractions. And, everyone's going through different things. Pastor Andy talks about this all the time. Like, if you had a hard time getting to church, the kids won't get dressed, won't wake up. You're living life kind of deal. So we're all living life. And so we try to take away every distraction possible. And so we pursue excellence, first because God deserves it. Jesus gave it all for us on the cross. So the least we can do is the best we can in every area of our lives. And so we play good. We try to sound good so no one's distracted. And it also, it kind of covers everything we do as far as in our everyday lives as well. If we're pursuing excellence, if we're pursuing God, and if we're pursuing excellence, in our workplace, in our homes, trying to be the best we can be, that's a great, example of worship in our lives.
So how on Sunday mornings we come here and we spend time, worshiping God, and as you guys lead us, how do you picture that translating into our everyday life? And you were talking a little bit about how, when we worship, we can worship God in everything we do. But specifically, how do you feel a good experience during our worship time here can affect us for the rest of the week?
Well, I think music is great. I think everyone loves music, right? There's very few people that don't like music. And so when we come here on a Sunday morning, like, the music, it's not about the music. It's definitely all about God, and that's what we always try to focus on. But it creates an atmosphere. It helps us to connect with God. It helps us to experience God in a way that we haven't before. And to a lot of people that, are coming to church for the first time, that's kind of the first connection they ever have with God is during a worship time. And so it helps to you get momentum to go throughout the rest of the week. So it's good for starting off, but we always want to. There's always more. I say this all the time from on stage. If this is your only worship time you get during the week, then you're missing out, because there's so much more that God has in store for us.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Can you share with us just a defining experience you've had during a time of worship, maybe here leading, or maybe even before just participating in a worship service?
I remember being, I think I was either 12 or 13, and it was one of my first few times going to church. And I didn't really grow up going to church. We went a little bit once, after I was 10 years old or something like that, to a couple different churches. But I remember going to the youth group that I, went all through my middle school and high school years for the first time. And I remember being at a worship service and not knowing what they were singing about. Like, I just remember feeling God, experiencing God's presence, to the point where I started crying and just felt God for the first time and knew He was real. And I mean, I always believed in God, um, but just having Him there, and I just remember, years later, um, that's still an experience that pops up. Also, another time is one of the first few times I led worship. So this was also in our youth group, and God had just brought me from a place. I was being a teenage boy, and did a lot of mistakes, made a lot of mistakes, and things that I still deal with now in my adult life because of the decisions I made in my teenage years. But I just remember leading worship, and it was one of those things where, it was supposed to be like a 25-minute set. We did 5 songs, and that was it. But God had other plans, and kind of just took over the whole service. And we ended up leading worship for like an hour and a half or something like that. And it was just amazing, just feeling God. And that was one of the first times that God used me, leading worship. And just, I kind of knew that I could do this, that God had called me to do this.
Wow, that's awesome. And man, I'm so glad God called you guys to do it, and to do it specifically here. We're just so blessed by that. Can you share with us also an experience that you've had just worshiping God outside of a worship setting, like of a church or something like that, outside of that?
Yeah, there's a lot of good stories, like in our care groups, and just getting together with some of the young adults and just being able to play and sing. I think the most recent time that I had was right before my baby was born, and I was playing my guitar. I was in the spare bedroom, and I was just kind of playing, and I usually just play the same few chords and just see where I can go with that. And I just started playing this old song called Still, and it says, "When the oceans rise and thunders roar." I don't remember the rest of the words. I always forget the words. But the main part is, "Be still and know that I'll be still and know that you are God." And I just felt God's presence. I remember just kind of crying in my room by myself and just worshiping God, and just a sweet presence.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What about people like me who have zero musical skills and scare people when they...
I think you're great. She's not.
Thanks. I'll lead one of these days. No, I won't. Everyone excellence, I will not be leading worship. But what about like people like me who can't just pick up a guitar and just have a good worship moment with God in the spare room,
Yeah. I would say don't base your worship with your personality. We were born to worship, and music, like I said, helps create an atmosphere. So there's a lot of awesome worship songs out there. And I mean, if you don't know any, you can talk to us, and we'll let you know some bands that are really great. But anything can be worship. Going for a walk around a lake, to the park. I was thinking about this because Jen Hartzell, I don't know if she's here, she knitted like a scarf or something for Josephine, and just thinking that's so great. Like, you could make a scarf and have that be your worship. I think as long as you're spending time in God's Word, I mean, that's the most important thing, and just creating an atmosphere and where you actually, spend time with God, talking to God, praying. I like to journal a lot, so I journal my prayers and just what God's speaking to me. I write that down so that way I can always go back and read it. Pretty much anything. Pretty much be creative. I always talk about that a lot. We serve a creative God. I mean, if you look around, everyone here is so different. Everything that He created, the animals, nature, all that good stuff. He's a creative God, and that's in us as well, since we're created in His image. So be creative with your worship time.
Thank you. That's good. Now, tough question here. Are you ready?
Ready.
Have you ever, no, he's going to be truthful here. Have you ever had a difficult time being here and just leading people to worship, like having your own heart in the right place to worship God?
That's awkward. There's been a few times where I haven't felt like leading worship. And usually it has mostly to do with what's going on in my everyday life. Not because I don't like being here. It's not because I don't like, seeing God work in people's lives and, worshiping God and giving him glory and honor. But it's more of guilt, more conviction that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing in my everyday life. And then coming up here and, telling people, encouraging people to do when I'm not doing it. So it was early on in ministry when I was, battling with that. And, I could say that a lot of it was the enemy trying to discourage me and, keep me focused on that instead of, focusing on God. But I had to do my part as well. I can't just blame it on him because there's a lot of choices I made that I knew were wrong and made it hard to lead. But overall, I love leading worship here. I always have fun. It's a highlight of my week. And I think as long as I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and leading the team to do what they're supposed to be doing, then I don't have to worry about it. I can just enjoy worshiping God.
That's good, and I think we can also see that as you lead worship, how it's what God created you to do, as well, and He created you so that you can also lead us, and just help us to have that moment of encounter with God, and we're so blessed by that. The last thing is there anything you would like to share regarding worship with your church family?
Yeah. Like I said, this is a highlight of my week, and I get excited about coming here and get excited about seeing God work in your lives. It's amazing how transparent it is from up here, seeing people that come here for the first time and they're kind of closed to God, closed off to the idea of God and a relationship with God, and then over the months, over the years, seeing God just work on their hearts and being able to, lead them and having them worship God, raise their hand. A great example of that, I don't know if he's here, is Brett. Brett had never been to church before, and just over the years, seeing him now, he's, in the back worshiping God, lifting his hands up, and it's just an amazing thing. So the thing I would say about worship is to not let pride keep you from worshiping God. When I was kind of struggling, I always joked, before I say that, I always joked that I took pride in the fact that I was a humble guy. And didn't know that what I was dealing with in my walk was just pride. I needed help. I needed to talk to someone. I needed to shine light in the struggles I had. And I wouldn't do it because I was scared of what people would think and stuff like that. And so it kept me from experiencing the freedom that God has for us. And when we worship, when we live a lifestyle of worship, there's so much freedom and peace and joy that now that I can just enjoy that, and enjoy God's presence because I don't have to worry. I'm not perfect, but as long as as long as you humble yourself and just give it to God. James 4:8 says, come close to God and God will come close to you. And as long as we humble our hearts, as we focus on God, sky's the limit. I think the biggest thing, worship is so important. Our lifestyle of worship is so important. This church has been called to do so many great things, to be a city on a hill. And if we're not pursuing God in our everyday lives, leading our homes, we're missing out. We're missing out, and our community will miss out because we're not experiencing God and seeking God how we should.
That's good, man. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for sharing with us. Thank you so much.